Okay, I've been working like 3 jobs. Probably why I never see you.
So welcome back to the Building a Fighter podcast. My name is Dr. Austin Schoen, sports chiropractor, strength coach, wrestling coach, based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. With me today, I have Rick Moschel, one of my good buddies, somebody that is in the mental performance space, and honestly, one of the best connectors of people that I've ever been around. He's a guy that when I'm around him, you can see I'm smiling right now. I'm always smiling, and honestly, I don't know why. And so, Rick, I'm happy to have you on the podcast, dude.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you being here.
Outside of everything I said, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Rick Moschel. I am a life coach. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I pretty much help athletes and normal day walking people to understand their trauma, understand their life, I pretty much study the human experience in all facets of it. And I am just always amazed at, how we became how we are today, how our thoughts bring into our life the different things in our life. I apologize for saying it like that, but
no, you're good.
Just how the human experience orchestrates how we live our lives, and understanding what past trauma is, understanding what trauma is, understanding what generational trauma is, and how our program starts from 0 to 7 and how it creates who we are today, and then how to reprogram the mind, because it's not a hard drive, it's software, how to reprogram that muscle, that brain muscle to live in a high vibration in a very positive space.
100%, dude. So if it is software, what's the first step at trying to, because you never really fix things, right? You're not trying to fix anything. You're trying to enlighten things is what it seems like. What's your first step towards making the software just operate a little bit better?
To me, I always like to go, first off, I really like to go deep into your family, because a lot of what we take on, we don't even know it. It's not ours. It's actually from our parents. It's from our grandparents. So I like to really kind of quiz people on, do you know anything about your parents? And if you don't know anything about your parents, of starting to maybe ask them if they're still around, if you can, but learn about their childhood, learn about how they were growing up, so that you can learn a little bit about the way that you think. And then also going into your 0 to 7, our programs really begin from 0 to 7. And then as we go along in our life, those programs become enhanced, and it almost becomes like a switchboard in our head. So what it is you have this file cabinet and it's a switchboard. So when something happens and you get angry, what it's doing is it's just pressing that button, and it's just really just pulling that out of something that's from the past that you might not know what it is. And that's why I always love to tell people to just kind of slow everything down. That's why I love working with breathwork, to just breathe, take a moment, think about what's coming through. Think about if it serves me, if it doesn't serve me, and lean into why am I feeling this way? Just get curious about why you're feeling this way. So I like to start out with early on in life to where the thoughts began, so that we can understand why we think and why we react, and why we have so-called triggers on that board.
Obviously, everybody is their own case, right? But are there any trends that you see pop up more than others when it comes to that first step, where it's trying to figure out what types of, whether it's family trauma or just families' ways of thinking, right? Because it doesn't have to be trauma. It's just ideas that get in the way of them getting to that next level they're looking for.
I think quite often, obviously you have mental trauma, you have physical trauma, or you have sexual trauma. And then also it's being able to receive things in your life, to actually open up lanes of abundance, whether abundance is of love, abundance of friendship, abundance of money, abundance of a sport, of happiness, whatever it is. But being able to receive, at a young age, quite often, things will happen to us. It's actually happening for us, but we say it happens to us. And it happens at a young age, and it puts you in this position where I was one of them, to where, back when I was younger, I might have asked for this, but I got this. I might have wanted this, or I got this. Whatever it was, I never got truly what I wanted, whether it was winning a sport, whether it was a present, whether it was something. So I went to a space of, I know for personal, to, I'm just going to do this for myself. No, you don't have to do that. If somebody gave me a present, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'll actually get that for myself. And what I realized was I was actually halting my abundance in actually moving forward in my life because I wasn't able to receive. I wasn't able to. And then when I finally understood when that was, which was actually sitting with my wife, and she told me that, if you need something, I got you. If I need to give you money, if I need to give you something, you're part of my future. I'm only investing in my future. And for the first time in my life, I really just started to cry in her arms. And I was like, I actually really felt in my heart that I received that if I need something, I'm willing to truly receive that. And in turn, the next day, multiple things came my way, clients and all these things. And I didn't need what I thought I needed. And from then, everything in my life, when it came to abundance, has gone straight upwards. And so I really tell people, not only when you're receiving something, but to actually use the verbiage so that you actually are receiving. So when somebody gives you, like you did well today, I received that, thank you. Here's a present. I received that. Thank you. Just giving a hug from your partner. Like, thank you. I received that. I received this love. Like actually saying I received that more and more, you're actually manifesting. You're putting it out there into the atmosphere, that energy of I actually really do receive. It's not something that I'm just trying to say because I want to get further. I actually do receive. And that really changed a lot for sure.
That kind of hits home because I'm the same way. I'm not great. And it's not even that I just like do it for myself, which I do, but I'm a deflector. Like you say, like people, oh yeah, thanks. Or, oh yeah, like you're good at your job or something like that. I'm like, yeah, ha ha ha. And I'll like immediately try to just give them something back. And I'll immediately try to be like, yeah, I am, but really you're doing all the work or you're doing this X, Y, and Z instead of just being like, hey, thank you and accepting. And dude, you're right. It gets in the way a lot because it's something that you don't allow that actual human interaction to take place. Because that is such a big thing, being able to have that interaction, being like, oh, this person appreciates me. This person is saying they're giving me something for a reason. I have to receive that as well. If I don't receive that, that's not an interaction. That's almost like a wall I just put up that's getting in the way of literally me understanding them and connecting with them.
100%.
Is that your secret to connecting with people all the time? Like I was saying, is that one of the secrets? Because that's you, again, you are really good at that. If I were to say something positive about you, I always get a thank you. And it's not a bullshit like, oh, thanks. It's a real fucking thank you. And it's cool.
I think one of my biggest things with connecting with people so quickly, and it's funny because when I first started going to Fight Ready, I'd have guys that come up to me and tell me like 30 minutes of a life story, and they're looking at me like, I don't even know why I said that to you. I've never said that to anybody before. And I've gotten that, and I was in the bar business for years, and I always got that behind the bar too. I think one of the most important things for me is that I didn't just read a bunch of books and put a certificate on the wall. I actually lived in my human design, which is an actual thing. My human design is what they call a 3-5. And in that human design, you pretty much everything you learn is through the trials and tribulations of your life, doing everything up and down, up and down. And for me, I kind of always joked about it where I did everything wrong to know how to do everything right. And that actually shows once again as to that everything really is working for you. For me, I can look now at my story and all the pain and all the suffering and all the things that I went through. I understand that was happening so that I could support people in this part of my life, and there's no judgment. If somebody tells me a deep, dark story, I've had deep, dark stories. And I think that's one of the biggest things of the connection is that people feel within me that there's no judgment, that I'm on a very high vibration, and that I'm just open to a good conversation, but I'm also opening to listening. And I think a lot of people want to tell their story and they want to project whatever they have. They want to be heard. And I love to be heard, but I love hearing people. And I love to see people. One of my favorite things in general with anything is integration. And integration is for people to be seen. So for somebody to actually allow to tell their story and not cut them off throughout and just sit there and be truly interested. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I connect with so many people and always have. Not to mention I'm a Yenta. I'm from one of those families where quite often the firstborn is more like dad. Quite often the secondborn is more like mom. And then after that, it kind of switches up. Well, I'm secondborn. I'm more like my mom, and she's very talkative. She loves to be in it all and hear all the things. And I think that's always been kind of one of my things is I love friendships. I love people. And I really am just absolutely addicted to the human experience. And I think people feel that about me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, that's wild. I've never even thought about that. I've like being born certain ways, right? Like I am so much more like my dad. And my brother is so much more like my mom. I'm firstborn, he's secondborn. That's nuts.
I'm telling you, man, I learned that a little while ago, and it's very rare has it ever been off chart. Like once in a while, there'll be somebody that comes up, they're like, yeah, no, I'm more like my mom, or I'm not like that at all. And like I said, it's never it's not about perfect. I mean, everything in life is supposed to be imperfectly perfect, but it is crazy how much the firstborn is usually like dad and the secondborn is more like mom. And that's why I really like people to start to get to know their bloodline and really know where they're getting some of their traits from before they even started their human experience. Because as weird as this sounds, I'll say it really quick, but you have grandma's in great grandmother's belly. The eggs are inside of her. Those eggs don't go anywhere. You only get one round of eggs. Right. Men's sperm, it switches. But women, we have one set of eggs. So the eggs are inside of there. That's taking on the vibration of great grandma. And then grandmother lives her whole life, and those eggs are taking on that vibration. And then mom is inside there, or dad is inside there. And when they actually are conceived, then that egg is growing, that they're still taking on any type of trauma, any type of stress, any type of anything. So as you see the bloodline, it's all connected so deeply through the eggs of generation to where it really is up to us not only to know what our past generations hold and what they've gone through, but then take that information. Now it's up to us with that information. Sometimes the way that you live in a positive way, it's because of learning through the negative or learning through the positive. Like I said, everything is happening for you, not to you, and everything is a lesson, everything is a teacher. So if you can go back in your past and think of all the times that, oh, I can't believe this happened, or man, that sucked, or I can't believe I lost that. Well, once again, if I look at it differently, look from a different perspective, different eyes, what is the lesson here? What is this teaching me? And how can I absorb this in a positive and move on? Then you're going to look at everything with different eyes. And it really is, teachers, you're going to grow from everything. And it really is happening for you. It really is happening for you. I can't say that enough to so many people. They're like, well, what about my child that I was beaten and all this stuff? Well, okay, now if you have kids, how are you going to show up for your kids? Now you have a choice. You can actually look at the teachers from prior and say, you know what? I don't want that in my life. Well, guess what? It was a teacher. It was a lesson. It was just a hard one to learn. And a lot of us learn our lessons from, tough situations. And then some people learn it from light situations. But either way, it's happening for us, and it is a learning experience.
Well, and it's cool because when I look back at my life, there's been good, there's been bad. There's things that I view as good that others view as bad, right? Like hard coaching. So for example, but at the end of the day, there's negativity, but there's really no negative outcomes. There's always something that you can gain from that experience. Yeah, some stuff sucks, but you're always going to be able to take something from it. And that's something that I completely agree. It's something that I live my life by, where I've had pitfalls. I've had I didn't do what I wanted in wrestling. I didn't do what I wanted with school sometimes. There's certain things, but then it always got me to where I'm at now, which I'm pretty freaking happy, dude. It's a good life. So if I look back on the things that I at the time was pissed at, it has always elevated my life moving forward. There's always been a reason for it. And that's so important I didn't even get into it at the beginning of the podcast, like how me and Rick know each other. But we co-treat athletes all the time. I think he's actually the person, he is the person I've referred the most people to in any field of anything from my business. Just because he is so good at what he does, and he's so good at connecting and getting people to understand their own minds and how to figure that out. And for an athlete to be able to see a negative and actually, quote unquote, spin it into a positive, the cliche, but really see that, hey, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be able to adapt. And there's a reason why this is happening to me, is so damn important. And for you, how do you plan that into the plans that you give them or the work that you do with your athletes to help them get to the next level and get over that and accomplish their goals?
I think number one is pointing out what it is, them actually helping them understand what it is, where it comes from. And then once again, like I said, it's a software. So just retraining the muscle to perform differently. And what usually consists of is morning routine, small wins. It doesn't always have to happen now. So many people look at this I've had years of trauma. There's no way I can get out of this. Well, let's start with today. Let's start with a small win. Did you make your bed today? What does your room look like? Your external world represents your internal world. So the more and more there's stuff all over your room or all over your car, whatever it is, the more and more I guarantee the mind is cluttered up too. So the more that you can slowly clean things around, just small wins, making your bed, when you brush your teeth, actually brushing all your teeth. It sounds weird, but truly it's a small win, because what you're doing is you're being aware, you're being present in the moment. And so being present in the moment puts you in a position to where you can orchestrate and you can really navigate the way that your thoughts are going. And then the morning routine of, what do you do? Do you start with gratitude? Do you start with meditation? Do you start with manifesting? Do you start with breath work? How do you start your day? Do you just get up, get out of bed, go because you need to be at the gym in an hour or 30 minutes and you just run out the door? And to me, that is a recipe for clutter. That's a recipe for possible disaster. So starting your day, and that's the thing, a lot of people don't have a ton of time. My morning routine with my wife, it consists of cacao, a heart opener. We sit with our eyes shut with a little meditation music on, and we start out with gratitude. What are we truly grateful for? Then we move everything out. We go into meditation. A lot of people don't understand what meditation is. Meditation is clearing the mind. It's not meditating and thinking about something. It's actually just letting the mind breathe, just letting it just calm, unplugging, so that it can recharge. And then manifesting, which also some people, they kind of mix that up, is, the most powerful manifestors on planet Earth are children, because they're so tapped into their imagination. So fast forward to as you're older, can you take your brain and really take your thoughts to a place of, what does it feel like to visualize what it's already like to be there? It's already done. You already see the accomplishment. So for a fighter example, since we work with so many, what does it feel like to have already walked into that ring, or even sitting there getting your hands taped? What does that feel like to be there before the fight? What does it feel like to warm up and to hit pads and to move around and to feel your blood flowing? What does it feel like to have the little tingles, or the anxiety, or or stress, or whatever it might be, or excitement when it comes to walking into the ring and then standing across from an opponent and eyeing them down when they're looking at you? And then what does it feel like to be in the fight, to take a punch, to give a punch, to take down? What does it feel like to already be there and then have your hand raised? Can you truly use your imagination in the deepest sense of when you were a little kid, and imagine what it's like for all that have already happened? But imagine that every single day until that event happens. So that when that event is happening, when you're sitting there getting your hands taped, you've done it thousands of times already. When you're walking up to the ring, you've done that thousands of times already. When you're in the ring and you're standing across from that person and you're looking at them in their eyes, you've already done it thousands of times. So it's not the first time. It's not something that's abnormal. It's not out of the ordinary. Obviously, your fighters are what you're training for, but still, when it comes to an event, you feel differently. So being able to manifest and already be there. So it's really big of your morning routine, putting yourself in a position to win that day. And really, one of my things that I absolutely love to coach is it's about self-sabotage, and it's 4 different words. The first word is patience, being patient in the process. Whether you're going backwards or forwards, truly, in your heart of hearts, being patient. And that means even in the ring, on the mat, on a football field, wherever it is, being patient with that process and your mind. The second word is intention. Are you starting your day setting an intention of how you want to show up? So if that day veers off, you always have something, a home base that you can go back to and actually say to myself, wait a second, what was my intention today? My intention was to show up, to be positive, and to give 100%. Well, wait a second, I'm veering off. I'm getting into, this is making me angry and this is making me, let me go back to my intention. Let me sit with my intention. The third word is commitment. How can I be all in on me? How can you be fully committed to your story so that you are able to be patient, so that you're able to set an intention, so that what does it truly feel like to look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, I'm all in on me. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I understand my past. I understand my present, and I understand what the future may hold. But I am all in on me. And then the last word is awareness. How can I be so aware and so present in the thoughts that I used to have, that I grew up with, the thoughts that I'm moving into, know the difference between the two, and be so aware and so present so that when your thoughts veer off once again, you can stop, go into that breath work of taking a deep breath, breathing, feeling into it. Okay, there's two different things. You either have information that serves you, that you can absorb. It's very positive. I love that. Okay, like that makes me feel good. Or there's that information that makes you angry, or makes you sad, or makes you stressed out, or whatever it is. It does not serve you. Well, stop, take a deep breath. Not just freak out, but like, okay, what is this information? Look from it from all sides, because you're so aware, because you're so present. Understand, and then, I've said this many times, if I bless and release what does not bring me peace. But like really looking at that information and blessing it and releasing it, and does not bring me peace. And then because you're so used to doing gratitude, you're so used to feeling into what you love, you can go into, well, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for like the air I breathe. I'm grateful for my body for holding up for so long. I'm grateful for my position in life right now. What was I thinking about again? I don't even remember what I was thinking about again. So truly, those 4 words can really put you in a position to where you can stop yourself from sabotaging, and you can actually put yourself in a position to have a winning day every day. And winning is not about perfection. Life is imperfectly perfect. If it's perfect, you are not learning a thing. So being in that realm of imperfectly perfect, but as the information comes in, I always joke around about how they say it's the game of life. Well, they call it the game of life because it's a game. It's a game of information. If you can rewire the muscle to really understand information as it comes in, that's the joking part about being hooked into the matrix. As information comes in, can I decipher information? Can I get so used to deciphering information that nothing affects me in a negative way? All there is information. I'm feeling into information. It serves me, I absorb it. It does not serve me, I feel into it. I understand why it's affecting me, what it's triggering, and then I release that and I fill it with love, I fill it with light, I fill it with whatever makes me feel good.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because like it all comes down to having a plan. It sounds like being able to have a plan, sit down and actually think about your thoughts, right? A lot of people don't even do that for the first step of what do I think? They just kind of float through life and do their thing instead of thinking and sitting down like, oh, what are my values? Oh, what do I want to accomplish? And then being able to bring themselves back to it. Because in my experience, like if I ask somebody if I ask one of my MMA fighters, hey, what's your goal? Do you know how many of them will say, I want to be a UFC champion, right? That's what they all say, but they don't have any measurable steps to get there. They don't know hey, I should probably have small steps along the way. Hey, what does it feel like to be that? What does it sound like to be like that? What is it at the end of the day? What are the little things I have to do correctly to get to that point? If they don't know or not even know, but even thought about what that looks like to them, they can't go back to that. And it all comes down to just like being a good coach. You got to have a plan. You can't just free ball. You want to be a good doctor. You can't just free ball in a session, right? You have to go in there with a plan. That's why you take notes. Anything along the lines of just being successful, you have to have a plan. Like Andy Galpin says it all the time, and I steal his quote every time, but you got to be a cook before you become a chef. If you don't have a cookbook in the first place, you can't go freestyle. Mm-hmm. But you got to have that cookbook of what's acceptable, what's normal, so that I can learn how to be great. If I don't know how to be good, I can never be great. And the only way to be great with what you're talking about is to have the plan of, if I want to bring, like we had Micah Schoenstein on, he's the UFC PI, mental performance guy. And he always talks about like letting go of the balloon, but then also like bringing his consciousness back to the center, like trying to make sure that you bring everything back and you can align yourself back into, I'm rooting my feet. I'm grounded and this is what I am. Like if I don't know what I am, I can't root myself there. I don't have any roots to pull back to. I'm just floating, right? We got to have that actual set of this is what I think success is or what I feel like success is. This is my plan and this is how I move forward with said plan.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny that you brought up also the goals, because I think that was what I was kind of shift into after that, was having small goals. Like you said, everybody wants, like, I'm going to be UFC champion. What is it like to actually think like, I want to win my next fight. I want to show up to the day today. So having small goals, having a goal of a daily goal, having a weekly goal, having a monthly goal, and then a yearly goal, and hold yourself accountable for these goals. And it's something to base it off of. And I love that Micah said about the roots, because, I love the analogy of, because so many people in general, I don't care if you're an athlete or a normal human being, what they'll do is they'll get into what's going on in their mind, and they will kind of put a Band-Aid on it. What I always say is like there's a lawn and you have weeds in the lawn and you mow that lawn looks absolutely beautiful. And 2 weeks later, that lawn has the same weeds that have grown in. And if you actually go through each of those weeds and you pull that weed from the root, then those weeds don't come back. And that's why I really love to take people into their childhood, into their family and all their lineage and to where it all began, because I want them to go to the root of their problems. And that's how I work with my athletes or my clients in general when I'm coaching is I want to go into the root of it first. I want you to see and feel and understand what the root of it is, so that when you're showing up, when you are showing up in your daily morning routine, in your daily goal, you understand if you veer off where the root of that thought came from, so that you can connect with that in a different way, so that you can move that energy and really understand it and be like, okay, wait a second, like, this is that child. And that's why, life coaches, therapists and all these people who talk about inner child work. That's what it is. It's going back each of those moments, if you can, one at a time, which for me, there was a lot to get to where I am today, a lot of inner child work. But going back to those moments and sitting with yourself in that moment, in that childhood, asking yourself, can I be here with you? And seeing what you needed. Did you get beat up that day? Did you get hurt? Did you get spanked, yelled at, whatever it might have been? What created that little bit of trauma in your past? Going back there, being with yourself, giving yourself what you need in that moment. Can I give you a hug? And giving your childhood self a hug, so that you're rewiring that moment to actually, so when it triggers later on in your life, you can actually stop, connected with that moment, be like, wait a second, no, I know that I know that all I needed was love. I'm going to give myself that love. And you actually move that, and it affects you in a totally different way. But once again, going to the root of that, just like Micah said, going to the root of where things exist, to move that energy into where you understand it to your day-to-day practice of whatever it is you're doing, so that you can stay at a high vibration. It's funny because, when you were starting the podcast, you were talking about, I'm always happy when I'm around him. He's always happy. I was not always this person. Not that I wasn't happy, but I had a deep, lying of deep-seated trauma from when I was young and all the things. Well, now people meet me and they're like, are you like happy? I'm like, I'm high vibration 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Like, I don't live anywhere other than positive, happy, high vibration. It's not about perfection. It's about really understanding information as it comes in. And now I understand myself to where all those triggers are. Now when they come in, I sit with that trigger. I sit with that feeling. I move that energy, and I still stay in that vibration.
You don't just disregard it.
Exactly.
You actually adapt, you assess it, you overcome it, or you deal with it, and then you go.
Exactly. It's never pushing it under the rug. It's never, because a lot of our stuff, what we've done is we don't even remember where it came from. We don't even remember it. Like, I'll ask people, do you remember your childhood? They're like, I don't remember. I'm like, well, let's kind of dig a little bit. What was it like going to grade school? They'll start to pull up some different things that happen in grade. So like, oh, wow, I forgot about that. And then they'll start to chime in with that, and being able to really just slow everything down and think about where things, like the root of things happen, and then just sitting with that information and moving that information, staying in it, and just knowing, pretty much declaring that I'm going to live in a vibration, in a high vibration. And now what does it take to stay there? And that's what I have to do day in and day out, figure out what it takes to stay there, no matter what's going on.
I think you need to make a program called Mental Landscaping. I think that's a catchy name. Make a program, Mental Landscaping. You're just pulling the weeds of life. I think that's the next step.
Wow, good thing this is recorded.
So pivoting a little bit, one of the big things that I respect about you is you implement breath work really, really well. Me as a breathing aficionado, with all the DNS and the different types of breathing backgrounds on the biomechanics side, I get lost in the weeds on the, no pun intended, on the side of the biomechanics and on the actual mechanisms of breathing. What I don't always get deep down the rabbit hole on is the implementation of said breathing, where it's the breathing in for a certain amount of time, holding for a certain amount of time, pairing it with music, getting vibrations going as well, which is just as important when it comes to pulling you out of fight or flight into more of our rest and digest, and allowing us to use breath work as recovery, but then also as a form of meditation in and of itself. What are some of your, we'll say non-negotiables? And I know that's a harsh word to say, but when it comes to breath work, what are some of your non-negotiables of what you think proper breath work would look like?
And I mean, truly, one of the things with proper, I love that you say proper breath work, but it's like, one of the things that me and my wife teach quite often is, number one, breathe what feels good for you. Some people really need to breathe fast. They need to really go into that sympathetic nervous system. They like that fight or flight. They like to really activate their system. I know Wim Hof is one of those that does it very quickly. The one that we teach, the Triactive breath, 3 breaths in through your belly, in through your chest, out through your mouth. If you pick that up, the amount of oxygen coming through, the amount of carbon dioxide coming through, it will put you in that active breathing. Truly, I like to try them all, especially when it comes to what you want to use it for. If there's somebody that is trying to, they need it because they're not sleeping well. A lot of fighters, they don't sleep. A lot of athletes, a lot of people in general don't sleep well these days. To me, that's when you really want to orchestrate a breath work that really cues into, obviously, it's literally attached to your autonomic nervous system, which you were talking about, your sympathetic, which is your active, your fight or flight, or your parasympathetic, which is your rest and relax. So I really like to, in that instance, use maybe like a breath of 4-9, 4 seconds in through your nose, expanding that diaphragm, 9 seconds out through your mouth. A 4-7-8 that is very common. 4 seconds in through the nose, hold at the top for 7 seconds. And 8 seconds out, very elongated, slow breath on the way out. Also the box breath, which is used with Navy SEALs and stuff like that for their deep dives. 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 seconds out, 4 second hold. And then, after, depending on how much time we have, I've made playlists from anywhere from 15 minutes to 50 minutes. Going a few songs. I like the songs, if it is a slow breath, to kind of be along those lines of a slow BPM, beats per minute, to kind of put you into a relaxing state. And then after a few songs, let everything out. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your diaphragm. Hold at the top for as long as it's comfortable, not till you pass out, but as long as comfortable. And then breathing out. And really over time, I mean, number one, you're really tapping into that parasympathetics. You're really going into rest and relax. And when you do that for a long period of time, what it does is it taps you into focus. It's so much connected to that nervous system when it comes to sleep, when it comes to health, when it comes to relaxation, anxiety, stress, depression, all the different things. Because energy moves with sound, breath, and movement. Mm-hmm. Energy moves with sound, breath, and movement. So the more that you can breathe, even if you're breathing out and you're making a sound. Energy moves sound, breath, and then movement. If you need to move, if you need to stretch, bring a little movement into your body. You're always moving the energy. And the thing is, so many of us, we've been taught as children, as men and women, to don't talk about your problems, don't just internalize it and all this stuff. So what you have is all this stagnant energy inside of you. And that's what's creating this sleep deprivation. That's what's creating all these different things, because your mind doesn't stop. It just won't get into that resting state. So when you can really breathe, slow it all down, you'll realize that when you go to sleep, you're going to sleep so much better. I've had multiple people that I know for a fact they've had tons of trouble their whole life sleeping. They've done breath work with me at the latter part of the day, and they sleep like a baby, and it's the first time that they've slept really good like that. But then also, when it comes to sport, if you're in between rounds, if you're, I know that, Djokovic, when it came to tennis, he did the triactive breath in between every single point. When you're in this state where your breath, where you're just breathing, you're breathing, being able to quickly, when that round hits, ding, ding, can you train yourself, first off, go into a 4-9, go into a 4-7-8, slow down your breath. If you take that 60 seconds to tap into slow breathing, you're going to bring your heart rate down so far, just within 60 seconds, that it'll feel like an almost brand new round. I mean, it's a new round, but it's going to feel like before you went into that last round. You're not going to feel that tension. Not to mention, when you do diaphragm breathing, the more that you do it, if you can do it 6-7 days a week, number one, the muscle of your diaphragm is twice the size of your lungs. So if you can breathe through your diaphragm, you're actually strengthening that muscle to where if you do it over time, you will realize when you're training, say you're in sparring day and you've done 3 5-minute rounds, you're waiting to be tired, you're waiting for that heavy breathing, it's not coming. What you've done is you've actually strengthened that muscle to where when you are breathing, you don't feel it the same way. So it's magic. And not to mention, when it comes to weight loss, and this is something, the book that is obviously absolutely amazing that I know you've read. It's called Breathe by James Nestor, big yellow book. But another thing that they point out is that out of every 10 pounds you lose, 8.5 pounds are from your lungs. 1.5 pounds is water weight. So the more that you can breathe, the more you're actually burning weight from your body, which is through your lungs. Because anytime you train hard, you jog, you sprint, you're wrestling, you're grappling, you're sparring, whatever it is, you're breathing heavy. Well, that's your lungs that are working. Your lungs are burning that. It seems like your body's doing it all, but what it is, it's your lungs that are burning that weight. So it's another thing to tap into when it comes to training with breathwork. I personally, I like to start almost every day with it. You know, before I came here today, I sat in 25 minutes of breath work, and it just put me in this nice, beautiful, light focus as to when I drove over. I just felt really good. You know, sometimes when you get into a position like this, when you're talking with someone and you're on camera, you can let the anxiety, you can let the feels kind of get involved. And I've been known to do that in my past. And right now I feel completely relaxed. It completely changes the game into how you show up in your day to day, and then how much stagnant energy you're not holding anymore because it's constantly moving it. Yeah.
Well, talking about, there's a lot there, but the diaphragm itself is honestly one of my favorite muscles in the body, right? It is one of those muscles that, because we know that respiration, there's on a scale of stabilization and respiration, it's an inverse relationship, right? We can only breathe X amount and stabilize X amount efficiently, because in order to stabilize my trunk, I need to be able to essentially eccentrically contract my transverse abdominis, which holds my diaphragm in a certain position. That's why I'm not breathing through my 1 rep max. Mm-hmm. The opposite can be said for long distance running. If I'm running a marathon, for example, I need less stabilization, I need more respiration, because we know they're inverse. Well, the only way to get good at that is to train the muscle. It's just like everything else. It's a SAID principle. It's specific adaptations to imposed demands. If I need to be like an MMA fighter, really good at all of this, you need to be able to stabilize maximally. Say you hit a double leg, you're trying to lift somebody up in a double leg. That's a max exertion movement. I need to be able to stabilize extremely fast and extremely efficiently. Say I need to go a 25-minute fight in a title fight in the UFC. That's a lot of respiration. That's a lot of movements. The only way for me to be able to be efficient at both of those things is to implement some sort of breath work. Now, like you said, it's what works best for you. What fits your system the best. There's no one way to do breath work. I always joke around about a lot of stuff, right? There's no right answers. There's definitely wrong answers, but there's no right answers. It's now that once we get to a certain level of competency on good, what good fits you? What fits your system? If a tall, lanky fighter needs to breathe, they breathe in a different way than a short, stocky fighter, because they have essentially less expansion of the trunk. They're not able to use their diaphragm as well. It's a little bit more constricted. If you have somebody like a female fighter that's been taught their whole life to suck everything in, suck that belly button up through their spine, well, that's an inefficient breathing pattern. I can't train them to breathe until I can break that pattern, so I'm not going to give them the same type of rehab. I'm not going to give them the same type of breath work, because they don't breathe the same as somebody I've been working with, or like a male fighter that hasn't had those same unrealistic beauty standards their entire life. And that's a hard thing to think about, because we don't want to view like any difference between male fighters, female fighters, male athletes, female athletes. But the harsh truth is, typically female athletes have a worse time breathing, and it's because of their inability to be able to expand through the trunk. It's because, whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's the girl that, even if she wasn't overweight, she had the mom that was telling her she was overweight, or she was locking the snack cabinet, or whatever it is, where they thought they need to suck everything in because that's what makes them quote unquote beautiful, that actually inhibits performance, because I cannot activate my diaphragm as well. Now, the other thing on that is, there's been a good amount of studies shown that if I have a rigid abdomen where I can't expand, if I can't use my diaphragm to breathe efficiently, then that rigid abdomen actually increases my anxious state. It increases anxiety. It puts me into that fight or flight even more. And that increase in the anxious state causes just a feedback loop on a feedback loop, where it just keeps compounding on itself, where you're going to get more anxious because you can't breathe efficiently. You can't breathe efficiently, that makes you more anxious. get more anxious, you can't breathe efficiently. And it's just a cycle back and forth that just keeps compounding on each other. And that's when you run into athletes that like they think the six pack is everything, which every performance coach knows it's not. But my rule is you should be able to get about like that first knuckle underneath a rib cage with them not flexing, right? Or even flexing. I should be able to fit my first knuckle of my index finger underneath your rib cage. If I can't, your abdomen is too rigid. That increase in rigidity doesn't allow the expansion needed for the diaphragm to activate the best way it can. And that actually has been correlated with an increase in anxiety. And we know we can pull the same exact study, which I'm forgetting it was about 6 years ago. I believe it was a 2015 study. But I don't remember the name of the person that did it, but they were showing that if you did increase the ability to add in breath work, and this was through DNS breath work, so like 360 degrees, stomach, side and back, expanding all the way through the trunk, that decreased their anxiety by a clinically significant amount. So it was actually able to wean certain people off of their anti-anxiety medicines just from implementing breath work and meditation work into their life. And that's why breathing is so damn cool. Because if I can take away something that somebody's basically been surviving off of for the last few years, if I can just implement a morning routine, put a plan in place, get them to breathe more efficiently and actually teach them why it matters, and then I can get them away from an anti-anxiety medication that could be inhibiting, like bringing it back to performance, inhibiting their performance. It could be causing them to have poor sleep because we know those typically lead to less REM cycles and poor sleep. It could be limiting their ability to actually stay up during, because sometimes they actually increase your awake time when you're trying to fall asleep. All of these different negative side effects of an anti-anxiety medication, if I can get them breathing to pull them out of that, that's a win-win for everybody. And it leads to better performance, which at the end of the day, that's what I do. I want a holistic approach to performance. I want them to feel better. But at the end of the day, if that athlete is in camp and they're about to go fight in the UFC, it is about them getting their hand raised. And that's, for me, the number one goal of every athlete that I work with is that they go out there and they holistically get a win. When you're dealing with an athlete to holistically get a win, how do you implement their breath work into their day-to-day system?
So what I like to start with is, whether I'm actually taking them through face-to-face or if I'm sending them a playlist that I've orchestrated to pull them through, what I'll usually do is number one, I always start with a mantra. Okay. I always like to tap into the subconscious. When I'm face-to-face, when I have them lying down and I'm actually taking them through, I like to bring in a mantra that's very positive, that when their eyes are shut, I like to slowly just bring them into relaxation, feel the support of the ground, feel the support of the mat, feel just supported by life in general, and then start to infuse them with that mantra. One of the most, we live 90% of our lives in our subconscious. So I really try to tap into that subconscious with just, say the playlist is 30 minutes long, 40 minutes long. I'll say the mantra probably 25 times. Okay. And just slowly.
What does a typical mantra look like, for example?
I am all in on me.
Okay.
I have the ability to create my highest vibration of experience in my life. I show up with love and light. I'm the creator of my own destiny. Okay. I root down to rise up. Different things like that. Different things that are just very positive, make you feel good, and really just, tapping into that internal dialogue of how do I want to show up. Yeah. And the more and more, just like a morning routine, the more and more you can program yourself with these positive mantras, affirmations, stuff like that, the more and more you're going to abide by and live by those rules. So as you're doing that, once again, breathwork can bring you in such a deep meditation. And then also, when I'm doing it face-to-face or sending out playlists, my playlist, if the song does not have any words, it's got a certain feeling that goes along with that type of breathing we're doing at the moment. Okay. I usually like to start out with something a little bit slower. Then we'll do a deep hold after about 8 to 10 minutes. You breathe out. Then we'll tap into that triactive breath in through your belly, in through your chest, out through your mouth, which ignites a little more of that fire. I'll bring in some music that has a little bit more fire in it. Then a deep breath, let everything out, do a deep breath, hold at the top, let that out. And then the last few songs will go back into that rest and relax, bringing down the heart rate, tapping into that parasympathetic, bring you in a little bit into rest and relax and focus, and really, hammering in that mantra so that really understand. And I always pick and choose when I'm saying the things that I'm saying so that it's a perfect timing as to where the feeling of the music is. Mm-hmm. And then also, if I bring in music with words, making sure that those words have to do with being better, understanding, growing. It's kind of funny. I kind of joke about
opposite of most music nowadays.
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up like most athletes. We were both athletes growing up. Like for me, I had that wrestling tape, and it had like the Rocky anthems and all the different, like the pump up music, Metallica, and all that stuff. And I get fired up and be in that like anger, like let's go. And it's funny because now that I listen to medicine music and breathwork music, I get more fired up than any time I'm anywhere else and anything else I'm listening to where I'm in the gym, I'm training, I'm doing whatever it is. I feel more alive. I feel better than I've ever felt in my life, which makes me show up even more so and even harder into what it is I'm doing. Dude, that's why I try to bring them the same way.
I feel that. I've never been a huge pump up music guy. Like I grew up wrestling, right? I think I walked into Down with the Sickness by Disturbed. Yeah. Every single practice from the time I was like 10 until like 15. That's just what Gomez Wrestling Academy, that's what they did. It's when you started practice, it was Down with the Sickness. Over and over and over again.
So good.
But like for me, like I want something to make me more intentional. It's not about trying to pump me up. It's about making me give my best or allow me to operate at a certain level that allows me to get to where I need to be for the given practice at hand. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes if I'm hitting I hit snatches yesterday at the gym. If I'm hitting snatches, I want some upbeat music. I want something that's going to get me going. But if I'm doing a mobility session, if I'm doing a technical practice, say it's a wrestling practice and I'm learning a couple techniques, say I'm going into we'll say we're out of camp and I'm going to go to a jiu-jitsu practice and we're going over an arm bar and it's a 3 or 4 out of 10 intensity. I don't need Metallica blasting in the background. It's cool if I do, right? It's cool. But I'd probably want something that allows me to get into a better mind space for me to actually understand what's coming into me, that I can accept the knowledge that's being given to me and actually implement that and be intentional with what's going on, not just randomly pumped up, basically like a auditory version of Coke. Is essentially what people use music for, right? Yeah. It's just a stimulant in and of itself. It's just an auditory stimulant instead of an ingestible stimulant. But I think that's extremely important because that's something a lot of athletes don't think about. They're just like, all right, I'm going to practice. I'm going to listen to Lil Wayne today. All right, I'm going to practice. I got Guns N' Roses blaring. No, sometimes you want like an Andy Grammer. Sometimes you want like string quartet music. Sometimes you want something that allows you to be more cerebral or chill because that's what actually is the intention of the session that I'm going to get into. And that's a very powerful thing, which I know you and your wife do a lot of like sound baths, right? And implementing vibration into the breath work. How does somebody start with implementing, like whether it's a sound bath or whether it's just implementing that right? I guess it's not right, but just adding music or anything into the breath work they're doing? Is there a place to go? Do you have online sessions that you have access to? Like, how do people implement that in the first place?
We actually do. We actually do have online breath vibes online, which is every other week, and we do literally a 40-minute breath work, and then we do a sound bath after. And I mean, the easiest way to explain, number one, just so people know why you even do a sound bath and why that's become a big thing these days, is obviously the body is over 70% water, and if you can Google or YouTube what vibrations do to water, it literally recalibrates the molecular structure of water. So what the vibrations are doing is recalibrating the molecular structure of your inner workings. And it's funny because, so many people that we've done it to, you have people that are just like, they open up and they're just like, oh my goodness, this just feels, you can just see them. They're just like, this is just amazing. And then you just have people that literally I've seen that are just like cringing and just like the vibrations are really getting to them. What you have is you have this energy inside of you and you've held onto it for so long that it doesn't want to move. And so, opening your hands, breathing into it, being lighter, receiving the vibrations will slowly move that energy. But what we love to do is, because you're doing intentional breathing, I brought how you said intentional breathing. That's the other part of it that I love about athletes is you're actually being intentional into feeling into and connecting to your breath. Because when you're training, you're breathing. I'm trying to get a hold of my breath. You're breathing, but the intentional breathing, one of the things that I cue in constantly also on top of the mantra is to how much deeper can you connect to that breath? Yeah. How much more can you be in a flow with that breath, so that when you're in sport, when you're in life, you can take the time to be so aware, once again, so present, that you can connect with that breath. Even though you're out of breath, you're so used to training your breath to being completely connected to that breath, to where you can, in the hardest moments, actually connect with your breath, slow it down, and start to do that breath work. And then when it comes to sound bath, there's just nothing better than after, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. There's some people that do hours of breath work. After that breath work, to just relax after all that has come through, and allow those vibrations, whether it's crystal bowls or chimes or, whatever it may be that's being played, just allowing yourself to kind of take in these vibrations and almost complete the process of that post-breathing relaxation. And it just moves that last bit of energy. If anything did not move through that breath work, this moves that last bit of energy, and it puts you in just this beautiful rest and relax, to where, where you open your eyes. And I love the integration after, where we'll always, whether we're online or we're doing it in person, I always like to ask people, what came through? Obviously when you breathe, you don't just breathe, things come through. And I've had, some of the toughest athletes on planet Earth, whether they're fighters, wrestlers, football players, hockey players, whatever it is. I've had them bawling, crying from breath work, and they had no idea. And after they talked about it, and they understood what was stagnant inside of them and what needed to move. And the funny thing is, day to day, if you live in limbo, if you're not completely in tune with your thoughts, you live in a place to where you could have stuff that's affecting you deep down at a soul level, and you don't even know it. And so really, when you're tapping into that breath work, when you're tapping into sound baths, when you're tapping into all of these things, they're just creating a different, they're literally strengthening your toolbox of how to actually move through the trials and tribulations of what's happened in your life. And then how to show up if you're in life or if you're in sport or whatever it is, you're actually moving that energy. Because so much, what people don't understand is so much of the injuries or their illnesses are manifested from something mental, something in your mental framework. So if you can constantly, day in and day out, move that energy, you will realize that you will go through life a lot lighter. And that's why when I say I'm happy, I'm living in the highest vibration every minute of every day, it's not about perfect. It's about I'm moving energy constantly. So in that, even if it's just driving my car, on the way over here 2 or 3 times, truth be told, and I tell anybody who's ever met me before, I tell them, when you're driving in your car, scream at the top of your lungs as loud as you can. And I will do that all day long, to where I'm like, woo! I give a biggest woo. I will send messages with that woo in there. I will, I do it. But it's funny because, we laugh about it, but there's different people that actually coach this, to where you scream in a pillow, or you scream in your blanket, you scream in the shower, or you scream in your car, whatever it may be. But that just moves energy. So it's like all these different tools, whether it's sound baths or breath or screaming or whatever it is, but it's just move that energy. If I could say anything to really dig into the breathwork part of this podcast, is just don't be afraid to move energy, and don't be afraid of something you don't know. We grow the most from the uncomfortable. The way to grow is to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. And when it comes to athletes, the best athletes become extremely comfortable in the uncomfortable. So don't be afraid of something you don't know. When I did breath work and held breath work actually over at Fight Ready quite often, I'd see fighters that would kind of be jogging, warming up, and they walk by, whether it was 2 guys, 10 guys, whatever it was, they'd kind of be jogging, warming up, looking over what are they doing over there? What's going on over there? And they go about their workout, and they never came over. But the ones that did finally come over, breathe, and they'd figure out, holy shit, this is really something. I feel different. Now, whether or not they came back again, that has nothing to do with it. But actually feeling the difference of doing it and not doing it, just be curious and don't be afraid. If you're around somebody who's facilitating breath work, lie down and breathe a little bit, or go on YouTube, find somebody who's doing it and do it on there. But I really feel that the more people that start to bring breath work into their day-to-day practice, it's going to help in every facet of your life.
I tell people, guess what? Whether it helps or not, which it will, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah, true.
It definitely won't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But like, as somebody that I am diehard science through and through my entire life, originally I was turned off to sound baths. Not going to lie to you. Originally, I didn't think emotional like releases were a thing. Not going to lie to you. I thought that was bullshit. I'll give you 2 stories. First one was while I was in chiro school. I went to my chiro school because it was the evidence-based school. It's considered like, if you want to be a good doctor and then also learn how to adjust, that's the place you go to. So very diagnostic, very science-based, very evidence-based. We had somebody had asked, I think it was in our 3rd or 4th class, about emotional releases. They were a previous massage therapist. They had experiences. But then they asked the instructor, and the instructor's like, "Oh, I've never seen any. People say they happen, but there's no literature to prove that," right? So in my head, I'm like, all right, cool. The instructor said that. They don't happen. Awesome. Never have to worry about it. Well, 1 year later, we're doing I was the head of an adjusting club and then a soft tissue club on campus. We were doing hip flexor work. Mm-hmm. And I had that same massage therapist that asked the question come in and work on somebody's hip flexor and talk about what he did. He was very well established in his job. And he was working on this one person, and out of nowhere, she just starts bawling. And I'm not talking oh, this hurts, because working on a hip flexor hurts. I'm talking like somebody just died in her family bawling. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there awestruck. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Is she nuts? Did we break her? What's going on? And then it's immediately, because I'm in charge of the club, I'm like, did we just destroy it? Are we liable? What is happening? Turns out she's just having an emotional release. She's seeing memories while this is going on. Didn't know that happened, but for her experience with this, she's reliving previous traumas as it's happening. While his name was Mike, while Mike was working on her hip flexor, and that was the most wild thing I've ever seen. And then in practice so far, and so that was oh, science isn't everything type. That was the first part of it. And then while I've been in practice, I've seen 3 myself. Whether it's me doing muscle work, it typically happens with hand-to-hand stuff, where I'm actually doing some sort of muscle work on somebody. I've also seen it with a dry needle. I would put a few dry needles through. It was a trap and a pec minor, and I was going through that. And I hit that pec minor, and immediately just the water work started coming on. And you'll find while you do jobs like mine over and over again that you'll get surprised all the time, and you got to be able to handle those emotions and be able to You're not the mental coach, right? If I'm sitting in my clinic, I'm not the mental coach. I am not the sports psych. I'm not there to give them the 100% right answer on how to handle that. But if you don't have any answer on how to handle that, you're fucked. Yeah. And you got to be able to know it's a thing, have a plan in place. I'm very big on planning. If you guys don't know this, if you heard this podcast, have a plan in place and be able to handle those emotions. And that was one of the coolest experiences. It was traumatic for that person, but it was, in me thinking about it from my perspective, one of the coolest things I got to experience, because it immediately showed me as a clinician, or a future clinician at the time, that, oh, the books aren't always, they don't have everything in it. You learn by doing. You don't just learn by learning. And that's that kind of thing where sometimes even if, say, a sound bath, even if I can't see that in a PubMed study that's validated, whatever, I've had really good experiences with. Yeah. I haven't had anything as far as breath work goes that can beat doing breath work and then accompanying a vibration with it. And that's anecdotal, that's my experience, but there's something to it. Just because we can't quantify the results of what's happening doesn't mean it doesn't work. And for the people at home listening to this, why I wanted him to bring up sound baths and bring up that type of stuff is there's nothing just because it's not something that is in a PubMed study doesn't mean it doesn't work, and doesn't mean you shouldn't implement it into what you're doing. Like we said with breathing, it's not going to hurt you. It can only help you. So it's worth the try to get it to help you, whether you believe in it or not, which if we look at the studies, like, so say like for my job, for working on somebody, the number 3 indicator, and if treatment is successful, is if you like me as the practitioner. Mm-hmm. The number 4 is if you believe in what they're doing, right? Those two things combined. If those are number 3 and number 4 on outcome measures of if you like the person you're working with, which is a subjective thing, and if you believe in what's going on, a subjective thing, then we don't understand everything yet. We can't quantify stuff. Otherwise, we would have an objective measure for it. In which case, for everybody at home, why I'm saying this, because we're very, very, like, quote unquote, evidence-based podcast, whatever, try it. It fucking works. And whether the worst thing that can happen is you don't like it and you just move on to the next thing. But I promise you, adding in some sort of vibrational movement, adding in some sort of vibrational breathing, adding in the breath work we're talking about that you may or may not understand or know yet, because that's another thing. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't work, right? I don't understand everything. I'm not the smartest person on earth. There's stuff I don't know, and they work really freaking well. So give it a try. Try this breath work. Try the triphasic breathing. That's what you're talking about?
What's that?
Triphasic, the breathing, abdomen.
Oh, the triactive? Yeah.
Triactive.
Yeah, so abdomen, chest. So you could either do it all through your mouth, which is, or 2 through your nose, 1 through your mouth.
Heck yeah.
And it's, once again, it's flowing with it. At any time, if you're uncomfortable, obviously, some different things that can happen, which I didn't explain real quick is, once again, feelings, like you said, feelings can come out, different tingle sensations, your fingers, your extremities, fingers, toes, your lips. Sometimes your lips feel like you got injections. They're just like pulsating.
Talking about going from all of the different, we'll say, breath work that we do and focusing on the implementation of whether it be the sound baths or whether it be the triactive breathing. What do you typically like to add into somebody's morning routine or night routine? I know everybody's different, right? But for the most part, something that people definitely can get out of this podcast, because you're very good at routines, is adding in a routine that they do every single day to help get them to the next level.
I'd say probably, for athletes, the most important is visualization.
Okay.
There is not a book on planet Earth that you will not see the top athletes. One of the most important things that they do is they visualize. When you visualize, you are feeding a subconscious constantly what you see happening to where it gets to the point where you manifest what happens. Mm-hmm. And so, visualization, I always recommend in the morning, taking 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes, if not longer, if you can. And just first off, start to visualize your day. Visualize how you want your day to go. Start, once again, a small win. Mm-hmm. Then visualize if you're preparing for a fight. Oh, visualize how you want your camp to go. Visualize that weight coming off, hitting the scale, being on weight, not stressing about it. Obviously, if you're doing weight loss, it's never easy. But once again, everything we do is a choice. So if you're choosing this, look at it in the most positive way as to, yes, this is painful. Yes, this is not easy, but I have a choice. I chose this. So now let's look at that. Let's embrace that and now move in with that in a very positive way. So visualizing what it feels like for that weight to come off, and then the whole process of getting in, winning after the fact, but visualization, number 1. And then number 2, starting somehow at the beginning of the day with gratitude. Like, what are you truly grateful for? Starting in a vibration of gratitude. Because, really, I always say that, the biomagnetic field of your heart is 5,000 times stronger than your mind. So if you're really feeling in your heart of hearts how you want your day to go, how you want your week to go, how you want your month to go, how you want your fight to go, your game, your sport, your relationship, whatever it is, if you're completely in tune with that each and every day when you start your day, it is easier to navigate any outside negative thoughts as they come in, because then you could stop, you can breathe, and you go back to the beginning of my day, my intention, my mantra, my gratitude, what am I grateful for, and really bring that to bring your vibration back, your mindfulness back, your frequency back to a very beautiful vibration, a very positive. And then also ending your day, whether you're starting your day with breathwork or ending your day with breathwork, but also visualization, also mantras, just starting and ending your day in a positive way, and actually being present, being aware of how you do that, how you're showing up. once again, how you're showing up day to day, how you're reacting to things. We cannot control anything in our lives. What we can control is how we react to things.
True.
And quite often what we need to do, or what can help, we don't need to do anything, but what can help in this is tapping into how your ego shows up in your life. The ego is so powerful. So really tapping into and knowing your ego so that you can react to things in a very light way, in a grateful way, in a high vibration way, in a way of understanding, no matter whether it's positive or negative, understanding it and moving that energy and being in that high vibration, being in that high frequency. The more and more we can start our day and end our day in high vibration, high frequency, with visualization, with gratitude, with love, with light, with mantras, with manifesting, the more and more you will see day to day that things are positive. And I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. I lived in anger and reaction and all the things for up until I was 44 years old, 43, 44 years old. And only in the last 5-6 years have I really taken the time. And it was small wins. It wasn't perfect off the bat. I would still react. And it was over time really rewire my brain of if and when I wanted to react, stopping and feeling what that reaction is and how I want, like why I was coming at it that way and what it was connected to in my past of judgment, of anger, of family, of, whatever the bloodline was, whatever that may come from. But just being so much more in tune with who you are, how you show up, how you want to show up, and living your life day to day in that vibration that is impenetrable mind, unstoppable body. Anybody who's been around me, I drill this into people's heads constantly, but impenetrable mind, unstoppable body. So your mind just being impenetrable in the sense of it's not perfection. Mm-hmm. It's quickly navigational as to whatever information is coming in. And then the body being unstoppable as to you may get injured, but if your mind is right, your body will follow close after. And then being patient and being in tune with what you're feeling. If you're overtraining, knowing that you're overtraining, and maybe what your body's telling you is it's time to do something mental. Maybe it's time to unplug from the training for a couple hours. And now maybe I'm going to watch film. Maybe I'm going to do breath work. Maybe I'm just going to sit in peace and quiet and allow myself to just relax so that relaxation brings me into a state of mind later when I am training or whatever it may be, to where I'm all in. I'm on point. I'm in that flow, and I'm not tired. I'm not all the things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I like being in the state of mind where you can actually get into being able to get into the activity you're doing, but then also being able to stay away and kind of turn off, like you're saying, because so many people that fucking wrong pipe, everybody. So many people that overtrain, it's just a lack of confidence. It's a lack of confidence in their preparation. It's a lack of confidence that they did everything. In a sport of MMA, which we both work with mostly, I would say, we have a over preparation, under confidence problem for the most part. Mm-hmm. And the unfortunate thing is, all of those athletes know how to fake confidence. So it's hard to pick up unless you're around them every day. No athlete that steps into the octagon in the biggest promotion in the world, which is the UFC, looks like they're not confident unless you see the minor details like you and I can pick up because we work with them every day. But for the most part, if you're a casual viewer, everybody that walks into that cage looks like they are locked in, ready to go. They're about to beat some ass. But for the most part, a lot of them actually have an underconfidence problem because for whatever reason they think that they needed that extra session, that their body was hurt. Like you said, even if your body does get a hurt here and there, your mind and being able to overcome that and being able to know that's just a part of the process, that's just what happens. And you can't get out of injuries. This is literally the sport of using your body as a weapon on another human. And then trying to get out of there. That's what MMA is. It's a sport in and of itself, but you're throwing your basically bones in a meat packet, essentially, at another human. You got to know there's going to be injuries. And the only way to get over that is to have a strong mind and understand that's just a part of the game. And we survive, we advance, and we do our thing. But if you don't address it, if you just, I guess, push it deep down like I did my whole life as an athlete, you're never going to get where you want to be, because you need to be able to know that's a part of it, overcoming it, and then have steps in place to get to the next level, which that's why they should work with you. And that's what working with somebody in the mental performance side is so important with. Being able to understand that your brain is just like your body. You got to be able to train it. And if you don't train it, then there's somebody else that's going to be able to take an advantage over you. And I want to commend you, because you do some damn good work, and I'm happy to say you're my friend, but then also somebody that I can refer all of my athletes to.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man.
If somebody wants to work with you, whether it's remote or in person, how do they get in touch with you?
You can actually go on my webpage. It's called moschelcoaching.com, Moschel coaching.com. You can go on there. You get my phone number, my emails are all on there. Or also, if obviously through Austin or anybody else that's out there that has worked with me, if you're a friend of a friend, don't ever be afraid to ask. I definitely am easy to find, but truly, also, you could find me on my Instagram handle. I have a clothing line that's called plantrevolutionapparel.com, and it's under Plant Revolution Apparel and that's pretty much my clothing line represents nature and plant medicine, the two things that helped heal me the most. And it's funny because you had said, the unplugging and being able to recharge and stuff like that, and knowing when to do that in your training. And I just want to add one thing really quick is it's kind of funny because, anybody who knows me, they know that I take people in Sedona, I take people on trails constantly, to kind of unplug and recharge. Yep. And quite often what you were talking about earlier.
I haven't yet, but I want to.
Yeah, and I can't wait to take you. But so many people will say, I can't take off. I got to train that day. I have to train that day. And it is kind of funny because the ones that have taken off the day of training and went on a 9-mile, 10-mile hike in the beautiful nature with trees, with energy, with streams, with all this beautiful high vibration energy that we can actually suck beautiful positive vibrations from. They'll go out, we'll have these deep conversations, we'll dig into their lives. We get off the trail, and on the drive home, they're like, man, that almost felt like better than a workout itself. And what people don't understand is, don't be afraid to unplug from the gym for a day and go out and go in nature for that day, because you're actually going to still get training. You're training your mind, which if your mind is not clean, if your mind is not clear, it does not matter how strong your body is, your body will give up. So that was kind of what I wanted to finish with is, don't be afraid to disconnect from the actual gym itself and go out in nature and actually recharge in nature, which will make you feel that much better in the gym itself.
100%, dude. I find it funny that almost everybody I talk to, you included, say the exact same thing about that. As we had actually our first guest on the podcast, I think our first or second guest ever was Bo Sandoval, who at the time was the head of performance at the UFCPI. And his quote was, "Nothing I do matters if they eat like shit and they don't have a mental performance specialist or a way to turn off." And that's from, at the time, the number one strength coach in all of MMA. And we've kept over and over and over again having guests that say the exact same thing, that it's okay to turn off. It's okay to rest. It's okay to go out in nature and feel good. You don't always have to be on polysynthetic mats with wrestling shoes on at all points in time. That's actually how you burn out, not actually how you get to the next level.
100%. 100%.
So if you guys got to get in touch with Rick at all of his information is going to be in the show notes. I'll link all of that in there. If you guys got to get in touch with us, all the information will be in the show notes at Building a Fighter on YouTube, Instagram. Hit that YouTube up. This podcast will be on YouTube as well, so make sure we're getting some views over there. And if you're looking for any strength and conditioning programming, we have custom programs, team options, membership options. All of that is going to be available at buildingafighter.com. If you have any questions, hit us up at the links below this podcast. So as always, this is Dr. Austin Schoen,
Rick Moshell,
and we are out.